So you're thinking about moving to South Louisiana, and you've been doing some research, you've been looking around at some of the cities and suburbs, and you've just been kind of confused, and you're starting to look at New Orleans. You're starting to consider New Orleans. Is New Orleans a good place to live? Is it all that in a bag of chips? That's what you're asking yourself. Is New Orleans a good place or what? Well, I'm going to attempt to help you make that decision by the end of this video. We're going to be talking cost of living, property taxes, sales and income taxes, weather, safety, things to do, and everything you could imagine we're covering in this video. In a few minutes, you will be able to consider yourself a New Orleans expert. Let's talk about it. We're starting right now. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know anything and everything about living in South Louisiana, whether it be the good things or the bad things, just everything, you're going to want to make sure you subscribe and tap that notification bell as well so that you can be the first to learn about the current real estate market here. And my name is Carson. My girlfriend Natalie and I were real estate agents down here in Madisonville, Louisiana, kind of across the pond on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain, right across from New Orleans. And anyways, we love helping people just like you with the process of buying and selling real estate. So if you're looking to buy a house down here, relocate here in the next 9 days or the next 90 days, whatever that happens to be, all of our contact info is in the description down below. So give us a call, just text us an email, or even schedule a Zoom call with us. And we've got your back with a smooth move to South Louisiana. So first thing I want to talk about is cost of living. So how much is it going to cost you to live in New Orleans versus your city? Let's talk about it. So for home prices, okay, we just surpassed $400,000 for the U.S. national average home price, and that's the highest it's ever been, 400,000. But that's like the milestone. We made it to 400, and then we kind of backtracked a little bit. Now we're at about 384. Now the median home price in New Orleans is $321,000. So what does that mean? Well, New Orleans is a little bit cheaper than the U.S. national average by about $60-something thousand. Okay, and if you're coming from California, you could buy multiple houses with the amount that you would spend to buy one house in California. Same thing for some parts of New York and some of the other parts of the country. I mean, it just depends on where you're coming from. But the U.S. median home price is $384,000, and the median home price in New Orleans is $321,000. Now for property taxes, what I like to do is look at the effective tax rate, which is a percentage of a purchase price of a home. So the U.S. national average is a 0.99% effective tax rate, and for New Orleans it's 0.78%. So far we're doing pretty good. We've got lower home prices and lower property taxes. Now here's where they get you. So for sales taxes, there's of course state taxes and local taxes, and if you combine them, New Orleans has pretty much the highest combined sales tax in the country, 9.55%. So you can imagine if you're going to the grocery store, you're going to Walmart, wherever you shop. We have no Costco here. Something to think about. We don't have Costco. We got Sam's Club though. So you're going to Walmart, Target, whatever, and you've got $30 worth of groceries. You're going to spend $3 in sales taxes right off the bat. For reference, U.S. national average sales tax is about 6.69%, so it's pretty high. Now, income taxes in New Orleans are anywhere from 2 to 6%, so slightly higher than the national average. So we've got lower home prices, lower property taxes, very high sales taxes, and slightly higher income taxes. But you're gonna find this anywhere you go. I mean, everything kind of just comes out in the wash, you know what I mean? Like some states are gonna have high income taxes and super low property taxes. Some are gonna have high sales taxes and blah, 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 blah. You get the point. Now, some states, like, I'm not gonna name it, but you probably know what it is, have all kinds of taxes that are high. Like every tax that there is, it's sky high. But that's a little bit of what you can expect as far as cost of living. Now let's talk about weather. Now it's humid and it's pretty hot, and I know you know that already, but let's talk about the stats, okay? So the relative humidity for Louisiana on average is about 78%. It is the 15th hottest state, and the average temperature year-round is about 78 degrees. There's a little bit more than 100 sunny days, as well as a little bit more than 100 rainy days. Now, is 100 days of rain a lot of rain? It depends on how hard it's raining. And in New Orleans, it rains hard. Let me prove it to you. It's not uncommon for New Orleans to get over 80 inches per dang it. It's not uncommon for New Orleans to get 80 inches of rain per year, and the U.S. national average is like 30 inches of rain per year. But it's kind of weird because it doesn't rain more, it rains harder. Does that make sense? There's some bigger cities that have more rainy days, okay? And then New Orleans has maybe a little less rainy days than those, but it just rains a lot when it rains. But I mean, if you're moving to the suburbs, like where I live here in Madisonville, we get about 60 inches of rain per year, so less than New Orleans. By the way, for cost of living, I forgot to tell you about gas prices. Right now, gas prices are $3.26, and it is a week before Thanksgiving. By the way, here's a little trick to determine the actual impact of inflation, because some people will say, 3%, 20%, 30%. They're just throwing numbers out there. Here's what you got to do. Look at gas prices now versus 12 months ago, and then figure out the percentage growth since then, and then do the same thing for median rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in your city and compare that to 12 months previously. And that's how you can figure out inflation pretty easily. We run our own numbers here. So let's talk about safety, because this is a big one for you guys who you got kids and you're moving down here and you just want to be in a safe place. Well, look, it's not the safest place. New Orleans is not the safest place. I can't give you any detailed statistics because I can get in trouble for steering, but you can do your own research for the statistics part of this. But you should know that it has been said that the suburbs of New Orleans are safer places. So if you were, prioritizing safety, do your own research on that. Like I said, I'm not advising you to do anything whatsoever in that regard. However, some people I've heard say that the suburbs are safer than the city. And if you're in a close by suburb, you're not going to be that far from the city, so you're not missing out on the things to do in New Orleans, and you're also in maybe a nice suburb with lower property taxes, and maybe it is a little safer. Who knows? You got to run your statistics to find out. But what is there to do in New Orleans? Well, there's malls. There's the Lakeside Mall in Metairie, which is not New Orleans, but it's basically the same thing. And there's the Riverwalk Mall. There's some really nice parks. There's, of course, City Park. There's Audubon Park and Waldenburg Park. There's the Audubon Zoo and the Audubon Aquarium. And not anything I've come up with myself. However, I've heard from people that Audubon is one of the safest neighborhoods in New Orleans to live in. Just saying. And there's a park and a zoo and an aquarium in the neighborhood, so that's cool. But there's the French Quarter. I mean, come on. Everyone knows about the French Quarter. That's the best part of New Orleans, in my opinion. You get to walk around and look at all the vintage antique shops, and there's all the psychics right outside the St. Louis Cathedral, so you can see what's going to happen in 10 years. But I really like those antique shops. You know what I really want is one of those vintage cameras from like 1820, and I don't know what it is about it, but I really like those things. I really want one. I'm going to get one day. It's on my bucket list. But yeah, French Quarter. Nice place to walk around and shop and eat. Get some beignets. There's Cafe du Monde in the French Quarter, which, for those of you who don't know, it's a famous beignet and coffee shop that originated in New Orleans. There's tons of stuff. Pretty much anything that you would need to do, you can do in New Orleans. So, it's got a lot of things to do. And like I kind of hammer in my videos, the main reason that people like New Orleans is the culture. It's just culturally rich. There's traditions. People love each other. For the most part, they're friendly, Southern hospitality. You get the gist. It's the culture. That's what it is. It's cosmopolitan, and people love New Orleans for what it is. So let's talk about the differences real quick before I let you guys go between the South Shore and the North Shore. Remember, I'm on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain. New Orleans is on the South Shore. If you get right off the causeway on the South Shore, there's Metairie, and then New Orleans kind of comes next right after Metairie. And then on the North Shore, you get off the causeway at Mandeville, and then there's Madisonville and Covington. So it would be like Mandeville, Madisonville, Covington. I'll put a map up. I don't know why I did that. I could just put a map up. But on the North Shore, there's a lot more land, okay? In New Orleans, the houses in some areas are literally this close together. You cannot fit anything in between the houses. You cannot walk in between the houses. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but they're very close together. and you don't have a lot in most cases. It's very rare to have a lot over an acre in New Orleans, and it's very rare to have a vacant lot in New Orleans anywhere. But in places like Mandeville, Madisonville, Covington, especially Covington, it's not hard to find that acreage. It's not hard to find a property with 3 acres and a 4-bedroom house. You can't really find that in New Orleans. By the way, if that is something you're interested in, I have a video on country living, which is right here, and you can check that video out. And I've got all the top 5 cities for acreage and land and really country living, for those of you who want that. So check that video out. Now, there are more fun things to do in New Orleans, so that's the downside of the North Shore. There are some things. There's the movie theater, there's an escape room type deal in Slidell, there's a skydiving place, there's the Mandeville Lakefront, which is where I go like multiple times per week. I love the lakefront. But there's no French Quarter. There's no zoo or aquarium, and you get the point. New Orleans has all the fun things to do, and the North Shore really doesn't have as much. So is it more expensive than the South Shore? Not really, kind of. It depends. Where are you coming from? If you're coming from New Orleans, we're talking $200 per square foot. Now, Madisonville is kind of up there. It's like $190, $200-ish per square foot. It varies, of course, but right now it's about $195. Mandeville, we're talking $185 per square foot, and Covington, $180 to $190 per square foot. So if we're talking New Orleans to Mandeville, Madisonville, Covington, it's going to be a little less expensive. Now, if you're moving to Slidell, which a lot of people are moving from New Orleans to Slidell, Slidell's price per square foot is $145. That's cheap. But some suburbs on the South Shore, like River Ridge or Belle Chase, can even beat that $200 per square foot figure of New Orleans. So the North Shore can be cheaper. It just depends on where you're coming from, and it depends on what you're comparing it to. And it depends on where on the North Shore you're looking, by the way. And one more thing to note, okay, if you're in Slidell and you go to Chalmette, or you go to the South Shore if you're going to New Orleans or whatever, you don't have to pay that $5 toll that you've got to pay to go from the North Shore to the South Shore. I'll put a map up of what I mean. So you can see that if you're driving from, say, Mandeville to Metairie, you got to go across that causeway, and you got to pay a $5 toll on the way over there. Well, if you're in Slidell and you take that twin span right there, there's no toll. So there's a little hack for you, a little piece of value that I dropped on you. But that's pretty much it. If there's anything else you want to know about New Orleans, I'm your guy. I literally give you guys my phone number. You can text me, or you can drop a comment, do whatever you want. Just let me know what you want to know about New Orleans, and I'll tell you. I truly hope you got some value out of this video. I try to make these as informative as I can and tell you the good and the bad, so you can make an informed decision about your move here. And if you are relocating to South Louisiana, whether it's in the next 9 days or the next 90 days, whatever it happens to be, all of our contact info is in the description down below. You can reach out to us anytime. We got your back with a smooth move. But anyways, like, subscribe, tap that notification bell as well, and I hope to show you around town.